Evening, folks. Jimmy Cavanaugh here, joined by Jordan Jackson and Will Chukerman from the cheap seats back there. We're trying something new with the alignment, but this is the IU Sportcom post game, coming to you from Assembly Hall after IU's 81-73 victory over Michigan. Jordan, you and I were sitting up next to each other. Will, you were calling the game on WIUX. We were all in pretty close proximity. There was a lot of really good basketball played tonight.
Absolutely. It was everything we expected it to be from two top 5 Big Ten opponents, number 1 and number 3. The house was rocking all night, and we just had some real great basketball for 40 minutes tonight.
And the first thing I want to say before I get into my analysis, I dressed up tonight. You guys put me in the back row. What's the deal?
Well,
I mean, we're dressed up too.
You guys are dressed up, but in all honesty, this was a game in which you saw this Indiana defense really come to the forefront of people's minds and how improved it really is. Trey Burke had to work for just about every shot he got tonight, and he ended up having over 25 points, 25 points on the night. But he had to work for every shot he took, and he was nowhere near effective as he's been in previous games.
Yeah, Burke had 25 points, 8 assists, and it was obvious that IU, even though they were hounding him up and down the floor for the entire game, they had a real tough time stopping him. Trey Burke, for my money, is probably the National Player of the Year, and IU basically did everything they could to try to contain him. They were not able to stop him, but they were able to stop him from doing enough that would bring Michigan to win, and his teammates weren't able to do enough to step up.
And that's the key, was not stopping Trey Burke, but keeping him withheld a little bit. Like we said, he had 25 points, but they did a great job defensively on him, getting fresh legs on him every now and then. I counted at least 4 different players who kind of switched off with Burke. We had Farrell, we had Sheehy, we had Oladipo, and I can't remember who the other one was.
We even had Watford guard him on a couple.
Yeah, Watford was on him too.
But point is, they never let down. They never let him really get going. Yes, he had a good game, but like I said, we can't stop him. But they slowed him down enough.
And my question to you guys, I didn't see a whole lot of the 2-3 zone. People were talking about that as being something that could kill IU if they brought it out against Michigan. It would give the Wolverines a chance to unleash their patented three-point barrage. We saw them stick man-to-man for most of the night, and it seemed to work pretty well. Michigan only shot 30% from 3.
Absolutely. I think that was the right way to go.
Yeah, and John Beilein said after the game that Nick Stauskas was sick Friday. He didn't even practice, so he was happy just to see him play. But I thought Jordan Holes, coming into this game, got a lot of flack for his defense. And I think he played a pretty darn good game staying with him and then also producing on the offensive end.
Yeah, I mean, Jordy had 11 points, 3 of 4 from 3, so he was a big producer. There were 5 Hoosiers that finished in double figures, guys. That was the balance we were talking about. I don't know if you want to go with Watford as the player of the game. He had a double-double. Cody Zeller nearly had a double-double. Victor Oladipo was playing solid defense and offense throughout. Nearly threw down an alley-oop that would have broken the Assembly Hall in half.
We'd have to do this outside.
Who was the most valuable player tonight in your eyes?
I think you got to go with Watford. The stats speak for themselves. The double-double. He was just a beast on the boards tonight. He had 1 offensive rebound, 9 defensive, and for Michigan being a team that has a reputation for being good rebounding offensively, he really kept their offensive rebounding at bay and was able to get the ball back in the hands of the Hoosiers tonight.
I'm going to go with a little bit of a wild card, some people might say. I'm going to say Yogi Ferrell was the player of the game, stepping up really when it mattered the most. He calmed down when he needed to. He sped things up when he needed to. Like I talked about, he played great defense. And most importantly, he made all of his free throws down the stretch of this game, really showing the confidence and maturity that we've come to see in the past few games.
We'll talk a little more about Yogi Ferrell because he stepped up, like you said, made the free throws late. There was an obvious difference in this team when Yogi Ferrell was on the floor directing the offense and when it was Remy Abel or Jordan Holes or someone else. Yogi got this team into the offense. He got them really good shots. He's another guy who you can really point to as a key factor tonight.
Yeah, IU went up, 20-7 early on?
It was, that was impressive.
And Farrell had those 2 early fouls. As soon as he went out, Michigan made their first run and brought it back to within 4 or 5 points. So that just showed you early on the kind of impact he was going to have on this game.
Yeah, Yogi Ferrell, I think Jimmy's also asking me to talk about him because he knows, I think I've got, is it considered a man crush?
Yeah, that's fair.
It's
that's fair.
Maybe bromance?
But I will be unbiased when I speak of him and saying that he has been a huge part to this team and how this offense runs. Like Jordan was talking about, when he came out of the game, Michigan made a run. But he was spectacular in this game, and Tom Crean alluded to it post-game on how good he played.
Let's move it down the line a little bit. We'll talk about the bench. We didn't see a lot of scoring from that group tonight. Will Sheehy had an off night shooting. He was working very hard on defense. He was on Burke for an extended period of time. And we didn't see a lot from Remy Abel, Mo Creek, Derek Ellison. Jeremy Hollowell came on, and he played some major minutes. I mean, he wasn't out there for an extraordinarily long period of time, 10 minutes. But he had 3 blocked shots, 4 rebounds total, and a couple nice layups. Jeremy Hollowell, a little unsung tonight, but he was a big contributor for these guys.
I think it speaks to his continued development. I think he's going to be a big part coming off the bench going forward, and I'm anxious to see what he can do. I mean, 3 out of 4 of his rebounds were on offense too, which made a huge difference.
Yeah, I can't say anything different than what Jordan said. Jeremy Hollowell has continued to see a steady improvement the last 3-4 games. His minutes are staying relatively the same, but you've really seen the intensity pick up. His defensive pressure has been spectacular. And that's really what Tom Crean got out of him today and why he kept him in so long.
And guys, let's just go to the bigger picture here. This was a big-time environment today. The game started at 9. College game day was here in the morning. There were students lined up at 5:30, at 6 o'clock. Long day of Indiana basketball, and the atmosphere tonight reflected that.
I'm lucky I had headphones on broadcasting the game because I took them off a couple of times and I realized really, truly how loud this crowd was. And I believe, as Jeremy Gray tweeted, that we did break the decibel record here in Assembly Hall tonight.
All right.
Beating what? It was beating the Michigan State game of last year, correct?
Yeah, 116 decibels was the official count.
But the crowd definitely did play an impact in this game, and you can sense that Indiana always comes out of each half with an added extra sense of emotion. Victor Oladipo is one of those players who just feeds off it, and you saw a couple times him stomping the floor, getting the crowd involved. It's really, really important for this Indiana team to get out to those early leads.
Absolutely. It was a huge night for the Assembly Hall crowd. Conversation between us up here was definitely at a premium because we couldn't hear ourselves think the whole night. I personally felt like the back of my head was going to explode when it got at its loudest points.
Yeah.
But it was a huge part of the Hoosiers' advantage tonight.
Going forward, they're going to have to continue to try and build off a performance like this. They go on the road to play Illinois. They're going to come back here, I believe, and play Ohio State. There's a lot of tough schedule ahead, but right now, IU's sitting at number 1. What do they have to do to maintain that going forward?
I think they have to continue doing what they've been doing. They played some real good ball. I think these past 2 games, well, the past 3 games, especially against Michigan State and Michigan, are 2 of the toughest they're going to have. Of course, both of those came at home, however. So the road tests are going to be difficult down the stretch, but as long as they don't get comfortable at number 1 and keep on playing on their heels, I think they'll be okay.
And Victor Oladipo talked about it post-game, that they're going to continue to have a chip on their shoulder and play like that. And that's exactly what you need going into Illinois. You know they're not going to be comfortable, most likely being the number 1 team in the country come Monday. They're going to go into Illinois and play like they did last year. Every game meant something, and they know that they can't rest one night in the Big Ten.
Yep. And be that as it may, we're going to end tonight with IU 20-2, 8-1 in the Big Ten, currently in first place in conference play. A long way to go still, but a good place for IU to be. Fellas, any final thoughts before we send this thing off?
I think Big Ten play is going to be the toughest thing for Indiana. Once they get into the tournament, I think their fast-paced offense is going to be very beneficial against the teams who might not be as familiar with the way things go in the Big Ten.
I'm just very interested to see how they come out and play against Illinois. I just talked about how I think they're going to play and how the team talked about how they're going to play. When they actually step out in the court, it will be another big road win for this Indiana team.
Yeah, big road win, latest in a series of those. They're playing at a very high level, both at home and on the road. It'll be interesting to see going forward. That's all the time we have for Jordan Jackson, for little man in the back, Will Chukerman. I'm Jimmy Cavanaugh saying good night, travel well, folks. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time.